An áil se roi bhlig an seánach. Annie here, will we have a night until morning here? I think the library authorities may object. But while we're all, it's more than pleasure. Dom hen ve hen seánach agus ihe ceoil, the sesiwn ceoil again, dras kaint again, neither make drink again. But here's the thing: it's all we're brought together by this man here, Connor Ward, and my name is Aidan O'Hara. I'm the chair, the Cathaoirleach of Cumann Ceoil Conmhaithne. And Conmhaithne is a region which takes in Longford and Leitrim, and the music we celebrate is the music of that region, Conmhaithne. George Bernard Shaw said one time, I'm writing you this long letter because I haven't time to write you a short one. In other words, when you have to press in, boil something down to a minute or two, you have to take a little bit more effort. So I have my little notes here just in case I get it wrong and leave something out. Local musicians, as you probably know by now, will perform here this evening, and it's to do with the song collection of Alex Sutherland, who was up there a minute ago in that picture. You saw him there with family members. And of course, he came from Drumreilly up the road. Our aim in Cumann Ceoil Conmhaithne, the Society's aim is to promote the music of people like Sutherland and all those who went before him and those who came after him, the musical descendants. And so this is really like a family musical gathering. In other words, members of those who collected the music and played the music are here this evening. Lots of them. The great thing about this region is that there are so many manuscripts collected, uniquely anywhere in Ireland, I can imagine. There's at least 10 collections. Incidentally, Father John Quinn, who is here, and you all know John, he is, as a musician, as an authority on the music, as an ethnomusicologist par excellence. He has, in fact, probably the most extensive personal collection of manuscripts of anyone in Ireland of the music, certainly from this region. And it consists of manuscripts dating from the 1840s to the present day. For the most part, the manuscripts in his possession were written down by members of the, well, you could call them a fiddle dynasty, beginning with Thomas Kiernan from Drumlish, County Longford, who may very well have been from Cranley. My father told me that years ago. I never had heard of Cranley, and you don't hear much about it today, but the Kiernans may have come from there when they moved down to Ohill, outside of Drumlish. And that's where he lived, and his nephew Bernard Rogers was there as well, another fiddle master. And Kiernan, or Blind Kiernan, was my great-grandfather. He was born, Connor says, about 1807. He died in 1887 in Longford. That was Kiernan. So he was, if you like, at the start of it, and then his musical descendants is what we're talking about, and we'll hear about this evening, and hear the music that Kiernan passed on and others learned from him and so on. Fascinating. I have a book at home, by the way, called Irish Musicians, Minstrels and Musicians. Isn't that what?
Minstrels Musicians, yeah.
Minstrels and Musicians. Francis O'Neill's book, which I got in Detroit, Michigan, many years ago, and it is inscribed by Francis Kiernan to the renowned Henry Ford with the compliments of the author, 1926. And inside, of course, in that is mention of Kiernan and a few other people to do with the music of this region. And that's Irish Minstrels and Musicians. And the other thing about Kiernan, our friend Henry Ford, is he has Drumlish connections too. As they say in certain parts, not a lot of people know that. And he came in the 40s to Drumlish with his family to see where his roots were. It's not often talked about, and he came in, things were pretty dark in those days, in the 40s when he was here. So Kiernan then, he was the, if you like, started things off. He taught Peter Kennedy, who's mentioned in the book, Irish Minstrels and Musicians, like Peter from Ballinamore, who in turn taught Alex Sutherland. and of Drumreilly. Kennedy also taught the brothers Terence and Philip Riley, neighbours of Sutherland. And Terence is Terry Riley's grandfather, and that's Terry Riley there. Terry, he didn't move from Longford into Leitrim like my people from Drumlish. They married into Leitrim. He moved out of Leitrim into Longford, and he has a big ranch down in the south of the county. And he's a great hand to sing. Not so much. You're not a fiddle player, but you're good on the tin whistle. I'm hopeless on it, but I can sing. So sometimes we often hope when all the instrumentalists are playing Terry, we might be given a shout to play a bar or two. So I hope there's something in the repertoire ready tonight. You'd never know what will happen. All I can say is that my Leitrim ties, as I said, is through the people that married into Leitrim, where John is parish priest. And of course, all our people are connected musically and in bloodlines. I tell people it's all relatively incestuous. So, I want to say that the man who has brought together all the knowledge on the fiddling, and not least on Kieran, in fact, Kieran is to do with his thesis, is Conor Ward, who is not only a descendant musically, but also is now also teaching. So the tradition and the heritage goes on. And I'd like to congratulate him because I think, is it November you will be conferred with your doctorate or dissertation on Kieran? A wonderful document. I hope, Conor, you get it into book form because a lot of people will be interested in it. And while we're giving him congratulations there, also to finish up with congratulations, he and Siobhan, his wife, have a new baby, Tristan, a few months old. So congratulations on all of those four. Great work. It's my pleasure to introduce our host for the evening reading in the library. You walk in the door, would you like a cup of tea? Libraries are centres of civilization, and if you're offered a cup of tea again, that's a proof that it truly is a centre of civilization. Mary Confer.
Díomh Corda agus tá fáilte ród. Tonight we're here for one of our National Heritage Week events 2019, and it's to celebrate the life and the music of the great Alex Sutherland. Alex was from the townland of Tome in the parish of Drumreilly and was a renowned musician and created many fiddle manuscripts. I wish to sincerely thank Conor Ward of Common Ceol Commatna, who worked with us in preparing for this event tonight, and he's going to speak to you now. So will you please give Conor a bula bosmore let a hell.
Hello, how are you? You're all very welcome here tonight. So hope you have a nice evening. I've celebrated a great man, Alex Sutherland, from up the road to in Drumreilly. Before I start, I just want to thank Aidan O'Hara, our chairperson of society. He has really driven our society since we were founded in 2015. And as Aidan said, we have a number of aims that we want to achieve every year. And our next project is to erect a monument of the great Thomas Blind Kieran up in Cairn Hill in Drumlish. And it's great to have a direct connection to the great man himself, his great grand nephew. And I just want to thank again, thanks as Mary Confer and the staff of Ballinamore Library here. It's just a wonderful facility to have on our doorstep. It's just really, it's fabulous, and especially during this week when it's during the week of the Heritage Week, and the theme is pastimes, which couldn't be a better theme. We're talking about Alex Sutherland, so just would like to thank Mary and the rest of the staff here in Ballinamore Library. So, we'll get cracking. So we're here to celebrate Alex Sutherland. Now, my starting point is always, I suppose, my own background. Now, I'm not in this picture here. My own immersion in the local music from the area, and Alex Sutherland and other great fiddle players and collectors, comes through the great man here himself. You all know Father John Quinn, through the Cayley bands. And that's why my starting point is always with the Cayley bands. And the music that we played was always the local music. It had to be local music. Sutherland music, Greer music, Kieran music, Rogers, etc. So Father Quinn's first Cayley band was in 1966, 50 odd years ago. St. Shillick's band. I think they were mainly based in Longford, was it, Father? Longford band. And they won the All-Ireland Cayley band 14 to 18 in 1966. Imagine that. At a concert 2 or 3 years ago, they had their 50th anniversary of this occasion. It was a wonderful night in Drumshanbo to celebrate all the great work of Father Quinn. So, I suppose after you won that Father Quinn, you probably thought that you would win it again every year. But you didn't. His next, now he got second and third several years, a lot of years, but his next win in Céilí Ban was 1997 under the title Keolis. And I see there's a few members here scattered out. I won't start naming people because I'll get lost myself. There's the McGoverns there, Maggie and Andy's there. And Lorraine Sweeney, Paula McNamara, Mohavas, Deirdre McNamara, Morrow, Andrew Morrow, and my own sister Sinead, actually Sinead Ward is on piano, who's on drums, but that was his next All-Ireland winning band. And then I was lucky enough to be on the next band that won in 2000. We won the Céilí Ban under-18 competition as well. That's me at the bottom right. It's Declan and McNamara from Mohavas, Marion Mulligan, who's here tonight playing with us, Nigel Maguire from Drumreilly, Kevin Smith from Carrigallen, Elaine Byrne from Gorletra, Mary Heston from Gorletra, Kieran Kilkenny, Father Quinn, Patrick Campbell and Pádraig McGovern, who's here tonight as well. So those bands that we had, whether we won or lost, it was all about the local music. And in fact, that band that was on, we won the All-Ireland with an 8-part, this famous reel, an 8-part reel, the Wise made, and it was a fabulous reel. And that was taken from the Sutherland manuscript, right? It was a fabulous reel. So that's where my background and all of this came from, was through Father Quinn, was all this local music. So I suppose that's what our society is trying to do now. Now the bands are not really functioning anymore. We want to carry on that great work of Father Quinn. So this year I wanted to focus on one of the great fiddle players and teachers and collectors, is Alex Sutherland of Toom, Drumreilly. So this is Alex. Somebody's seen his picture already. This is taken around 1950. Alex was born in 1874, so he was quite old at that stage. That's his wife Annie, and there's their children, Patrick and Bridget. Okay, now we have more pictures as well to show you. But I was talking to the family, Kathleen McGovern and her daughter Carmen Sutherland, and Karen McDermott and her husband Paddy. And we talked a bit about the family history, and they said that it was known in the family that the Sutherlands came from Scotland, which is not a surprise, I suppose, with the surname Sutherland. So I started doing a bit of digging in the records. And so the earliest records in the 1800s is 1834, the land records, the Athaid records. And I looked up the town and the tomb, and there's no Sutherlands at that point in 1834. Now, some of you may know the census records from 1821, 1841, and 1851 were lost in the Great Fire of the Four Courts in 1922 during the Irish Civil War. So we don't have any census records left in that period. However, we're lucky enough that Daniel Sutherland applied for the pension in 1921 and did a check back of the 1851 census, right? And what we find is that, we believe is that the man that came from Scotland may have been Daniel Sutherland, and he died in 1872, age 74. So he was obviously born around 1798. Then I found a Bridget Sutherland who passed away in 1869, so he must have married a local girl. I presume Bridget is an Irish name, that's not a Scottish forename, but we can't be sure of that. And they had one son, who was Alex. That's the second generation. Alex was born in around 1834, and he died in 1882. So just to show you that this was a census search for Daniel's grandson in 1821. So do you see down here, where I'm pointing with this? Donald, well it was either by Daniel or Donald Sutherland, was aged 53 as the head of the family in 1851. So we know that between 1834 and 1851, Daniel must have arrived in Toom. Why or how, we're not sure. There is a speculation maybe that the guy who owned that land, the landlord, was a man called John Godley, and we believe that Godly may have brought over like settlers from Scotland, those vacant properties. So you can see then his son Alex, aged 22, not married. So that's the extract from the 1851 census. And Alex married a Margaret Lynch. Again, I'm not sure where Margaret was from, but maybe there's family here tonight, maybe afterwards they might be able to shine some light on that. So then we get to our Alex, the main man tonight. He's third generation. Alex was born in 1874. Now, the Sutherlands were telling me that a family came home from Canada years ago, and that they said that there was 13 children in that family. Now I've looked up the records, I can only find 9. Okay? So if you look on your handout, I'll just go quickly through them. There was a Maria and Christina. She was also known as Teeny. Sorry, that's a generation after. Sorry, apologies. Going back to Alex's siblings. He had a brother, Thomas, who died aged 28. He had another brother, Daniel, who was a shoemaker in Cavan Town. They had 5 children. They had a son, Alex, that died in World War I. He was only aged 20 at the time. Then Alex had a younger brother, also called Alex, who died only aged 6. So we believe that Alex was probably named after that young brother that was only 6. They also had another tragedy in the family. Another sister, Kate. She died only at the age of 15. So you had 3 of them that died very, very young in that family. There was a Lawrence. I don't know, I'm not sure who he was. We have no information on him. There was a Catherine. That's who died at the age of 15. Bridget, Margaret, Michael, who lived near the home place, and then we have Alex. So I found 9 of them. I haven't found the other 4. So if anyone has any more information, they might show me afterwards. So the 2 brothers, Michael and Alex, they married 2 ladies from the one family, from the Luby family. So Alex married Anne Maria Luby from Drumconleven, is it? Have that pronounced right? Drumconleven in Cavan. And they got married in 1912 in Drumreilly. Alright? And they had 7 children. Maria Christina, that's who was started first, she was known as Teeny, was it? Auntie Teeny. She married a Roger Doherty of Donegal, and they lived in Carrick, and they had a family there. And Teeny played the dulcimer. You ever seen the dulcimer? A picture of it, I'll show you, yeah. Then we have Margaret. She was known as Maggie. She was the only fiddle player seemingly in the family, so Alex must have only taught her the fiddle. And she was a nurse in England, I believe, and she came home and she looked after the parents in the home place before they passed away. Now, John Mannion, grandson-in-law, I won't go into how he's connected, but he gave me a lovely photo of Alex, right? This is Alex, obviously, and this is the 2 girls. So this is a Maggie playing the fiddle, and this is Teeny, isn't it? This is Aunt Teeny playing the dulcimer. I never heard an instrument before. I'm not
Hammer dulcimer.
Hammer dulcimer, yeah.
County Antrim was the only other place where
Really?
he played. There was a man, John Robb, he played.
Right.
Famous musician
Yeah.
of that.
So it's a lovely photo, isn't it?
Yeah,
This was taken around 1928. I got that from John Mannion. So then we had, and then there was Annie, and she was known as Baby, even though they were telling me that she wasn't a baby in the family. And she married a Charlie Sheridan of a Callos, is it? Callos, Carrigallen? Yes. And they had 6 children. And we have Carmel here tonight and Phyllis, 2 of them here. Is there more here tonight? Cahal, a few more tonight, lovely. And the McDermotts are going to play music at the very end. We're going to have a lovely evening of music. And then we have Michael Francis. He was an accordion player. He married a Betty Doyle from Mohill, and they had no children. There was Bridget. She was known as Auntie Beezy, is it? Yeah. Auntie Beezy. And she was married to Tom Mimna, and they had 1 son, Thomas. And then we had a Patrick, also known as Pat, and he's married to a Kathleen McGovern, who was here tonight. And their daughter's here tonight, Carmen Sutherland. And they live up in Garradance. And then lastly, the number 7, we had John, who seemingly was known as Sean, is it? Yes. It was John, but he was known as Sean. And was he? I think he was the last to die, was he? Or no, he was one of the last to pass away. And he was married to Ita Goff, Go with her, Goff? Goff. And she still lives in the home place. I'm not sure she's here tonight, is she? Is she here tonight? No? Her son, oh, that's great, that's fantastic. What's called, their son is here tonight, and they still live in the home place in Toome. So that's the family. So this is a lovely picture here. Again, I got this off members of the family. This is Alex standing up, obviously. And then, I'm not going to go through all the names here, but there's a mixture of his children. But that is a Patrick, isn't it? That baby there, that is Kathleen's husband, Pat. And he was born around 1931, so this picture must have been taken around 1931. Yeah. And again, you can see the adult simmer next to Annie, who was Alex's wife. And then that is, I think, Michael Francis there, and Bridget. I'm not going to go through the back, but that's the family. And that was taken, we think, around 1931, based on the age of Pat. It's lovely to have these pictures, isn't it? Oh, wonderful. You know, it really brings it to life. Yeah. So, back to Father Quinn. So Father Quinn was doing research when he was with the bands, playing with the bands in the 1960s and 70s. He realised a lot of the fiddle players were connected to each other in terms of teachers and students, right? And he started to connect the dots. This is a chart that he did in 1970. Now I know you can't really see it that well, but you can see there that is at the very top is a Peter Kennedy from Ballinamore, right at the road here from a Listontulla townland. And Kennedy was taught by the famous Thomas Blind Kieran, we're talking earlier, from Drumnish in Longford. And then these are all the connections that Father Quinn made, right? So you see they're all the students of Peter Kennedy. As Aidan mentioned, there was two of his children, James and Ellen. I found there was actually two more children as well taught by Alex, or taught by Peter Kennedy. There were the two Rileys, mentioned Terence Riley and Philip Riley, neighbours of Alex. And there was obviously Alex Sutherland and Johnny Gray from Drumreilly as well. So there, at least, we know about 8 or 9 students of Peter Kennedy's, one of whom was Alex Sutherland. But as you'll see, Sutherland then had a lot of students. Now, Father Quinn found, I think Father Quinn mentioned there's about 7 there. I found another 13 students of Sutherland. So in total we have about 20 students, known students of Sutherland. And I'm sure there's probably family here tonight belonging to students of Sutherland. So if we could find 20 students, probably the number was much, much greater. Probably was much, much greater. So this is just an extract of it. Again, okay, this is my extract of it. So this is Thomas Blind Kieran. And Thomas Blind Kieran at the very top, he is the man that brought fiddle music all over the region of South Leitrim and Longford. That region we're talking about tonight. Okay? So he travelled all over that region for about 40 years, from 1840 to 1880, brought the music to the people. Now, what happened after that was kind of local fiddle clusters kind of started. So a local fiddle cluster in South Longford, a local fiddle cluster in North Longford, and here in South Leitrim, a fiddle cluster with Peter Kennedy. Right? So 3 of his students, they went on to teach in their own local areas, thereby creating a fiddle cluster. Now, I'll just briefly talk about James Hanley from South Longford, the town of Newtown Cashel. The Hanley family, you ever heard of them? James Hanley? But he's a relation, and he was taught by Thomas Blind Kieran. And the man who found that connection was Aidan O'Hara. It was in the school's folklore collection from 1935. And it was written in Irish, and I don't speak Irish that well, so I'd missed it. And Aidan spotted it. And I'll just read out what was written. An old fiddler by the name of James Hanley, Carroul, Newtown Cashel, died 30 years ago in the poorhouse Ballymahan. He had been a scholar of Master McKiernan. This is Thomas McKiernan. He also played fiddle playing to the youth of the area, which shows that he taught the fiddle to the people of the South Longford region. And in another extract we hear about that he taught up to 15 students, James Hanley, down in South Longford. So that's one fiddle cluster that we know about in South Longford. Now, it wasn't just James Hanley that he taught in South Longford. There was a Michael Leonard of Leonard's Pub in Abbey Shrew. Do you all know Abbey Shrew? Yeah? And the most remarkable thing, you heard the story before I'm sure, was that a carpenter, Pierce Butler, in 1962, right, found a manuscript, a fiddle manuscript, under the roof of Leonard's pub when he was fixing it. Now, lucky enough, Pierce Butler was also a fiddle player, or he would have thrown it away, obviously, because he wouldn't know the value of it. And then, to make a long story short, he gave that manuscript to Father Quinn, and we went through it, or Father Quinn went through it, and it's dated from 1844 to 1846. And it's Thomas Kiernan teaching the boy of the house. Imagine, just before the famine. It's an incredible thing to have to this day. And we believe that James Hanley may be also in the manuscript. There are several other scribes, so there's a good chance that James Hanley was also one of the boys learning at the time. So I'll show you a page. This is a fabulous page. It shows so much stuff. This is Kiernan teaching 2 different reels to his student Leonard. And the great thing about it, most important thing about it, is that it's signed and dated. So when you see this here, Sporting Kate, which is a version of the Bonnie Kate, the famous Bonnie Kate reel that Coleman recorded, right? Now when you read this, we were while trying to get to reading this, January the 4th, 1845, T. Kiernan, right? And he signed and dated throughout the whole section of that manuscript, him and his student Michael Leonard, right up to January 1846, right before the famine gripped Ireland. And something we'll talk about later on, if any of you know music, reels. So these are reels here, okay? See how they are grouped in 4s? See that? 4 notes and 4 notes and 4 notes, right? Do you notice a pattern of this little stroke? This stroke is on the first 2 notes, none on that. First 2, none on that. Well, that's a bowing a technique called slur and cut. So what this means is, see that little stroke there? You play those 2 notes on one bow, and you play the next 2 notes on a cut bow or a single bow. So it's just called slur and cut. And you can see the pattern.
Yes.
See, it's very distinctive. The whole way through in this reel as well. Right? And that bowing technique survived in all the regions, South Longford, North Longford and South Leitrim here, in all the fiddle players. It was taught the whole way down to the 4th generation, 5th generation of fiddle players. We'll talk about that later. So there's a lot of information on that. You see over there on the left? Great. So he must have been telling Michael Leonard that he was a fantastic student. So that's just a brief thing on South Longford. Then we talk about North Longford. His nephew was one of his greatest pupils and became a fiddle teacher, Bernard Rogers, who was Aidan O'Hara's granduncle. And Bernard was the master of the local national school in Esker, in Cologne. And in 1894, he changed from being a national school teacher to being a full-time fiddle teacher in the North Longford region, and in South Leitrim a bit. And there was a surge, huge surge of fiddle players in that region of North Longford once Bernard Rogers started to teach, along with his uncle too at the same time, for a period at the same time. And there was another, Francis MacDonagh, who was taught by Kieran as well. And we have music, a lot of music from Bernard Rogers from that period onwards, from the 1870s onwards, which I don't have time now tonight, obviously, to go through. But as you can see, so that's the second fiddle cluster, that's North Longford. Now we get to where we are here now, which is South Leitrim. This is the 3rd cluster. And the great man that continued on Kiernan's music in Leitrim was Kennedy. Peter Kennedy, a farmer from Lisnatullah out the road. And as you see here again, I've just named some of his students. I put Alex in green, because that's what we're talking about tonight. But you see, he also taught two brothers, Terence O'Reilly and Philip O'Reilly, and as Aidan mentioned, Terence O'Reilly's grandson, Terry, is here tonight. And my very first fiddle pupil was Terry's son, Porrick. So the whole thing has come back full circle. Porrick is a fabulous fiddle player. And Johnny Gray we mentioned, and then some of his children, James Kennedy and Ellen Kennedy. So only kind of one of Kennedy's students really became a full-time teacher, and that was Alex. He became the next generation here in South Leitrim. So Alex was a farmer and a fiddle teacher, and he decided, Alex, to submit all of his music to the National Folklore Commission in 1957. Well, I think it's 1957. Do you see the stamp up there in the corner?
Yeah.
Is it a 7 or a 9?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
right? So Alex submitted over 275 tunes to the Folklore Commission, about 20 songs and 5 stories. It's a fabulous collection. And that was a collection that Father Quinn, who we'll talk about later on, went to great lengths to get a copy of. And that's the music that we play today in the bands. It's that wonderful Sutherland music that he got from this collection. And he was a good age at this stage. Remember, he was born in 1874. He was around 85. You know, so this music would have been sourced from his whole lifetime. So, and he signed it, Alex Sutherland, Tomb House, Carrigallen, County Leitrim. And this is the inside page. Please take notice of the following O'Carroll air, for the song is the first and third parts of the tune. We think that's to do with the Drunken Kelly tune. I think some of you are aware here, Drunken Kelly. He's trying to infer that there's a song to this tune, right? There are 2 tunes of the Jacksons. I have a good many old tunes. I play all the tunes in this book and also the principal tunes in O'Neill's Music. O'Neill's Music was a famous book that came out in 1903 published by Francis O'Neill, and it became the most popular collection in Ireland among all fiddle players and musicians. So he's just telling us that he had a copy of that. And then he says, I play a lot of the good Irish airs, and just in case they were unsure if he's a good fiddle player or not, he said, I won 4 gold medals. So that was before it was the same time as the Flack Yole and the Heron was it 1951, Flack Yole and Heron? Yeah. First Flack Yole? But I doubt he means Flack Yole. I think there was a lot of Festionas, wasn't there, before that? Yeah, Festionas. So he would have probably have competed at Festionas around the country, and he won 4 gold medals. Thanking you again, he says. So just in case anyone was unsure, he wanted to know what. So this is just a page from that book. So there were 6 books, okay? There was over 102 tunes in this book, and this is one of the pages. And we talk a bit about that at the end. So 102 tunes in that book, and we're going to play some tunes, obviously, from this collection. We're on now to get my bearings. Book 2, right, is a shorter book. There's only 45 tunes in it. Then there was book 3, another short book. There was 41 tunes in it. Then book 4, he must have ran out of manuscripts. So, what do? Write on the back of a calendar. So he used this because actually it looks like, how would you write tunes? But the back of that was actually blank. So there's music on every other side. And can you read the side of what year it says? Yeah. January 1953. So he wrote a lot of tunes on this. Now I was talking to John Lee, a flute player from Monvas. I don't know if John is here, is he? John, are you here? No, he's not here. John told me that he was talking to Brian Pryor, a fiddle player who came from this region of Ballinamore. Do you know anyone know Brian Pryor? He was involved in a cultus in Dublin. But anyway, Brian was telling John that he was also taught by Alex Sutherland, and that Sutherland used to give him tunes in the back of calendars. So we think that obviously that Alex was a loyal customer of Esso, and he was getting a lot of calendars, you know. But so that's book 4, and then book 5 then starts the songs. A lot of songs in book 5 that he wrote out, and kind of tales and local music, folklore and stuff. And we have a tune of Maxwell from my own parish, Ballinamore, is going to sing a lovely song from it that we think that he composed. There's a number of songs in that he claims he composed and that appear to be composed by him. Michael Rooney's band. Not the Michael Rooney of Sligo, who also trains the Cayley band, but this is Michael Rooney's band, whoever Michael Rooney was. And then we go on to, what's interesting actually, yes, about this is that he didn't claim that he composed any of the tunes in the books except one, right? He's making it very clear here, under no illusion. He says an Irish march composed by Alexander Sutherland, Tomb House, Carrigallen, Post Office, County Leitrim. Now you notice another stamp up here. It's a radio station in 1940. So he must have sent this march up to the Radio Éireann, who I was asking Father Quinn, I'm not sure why he would have sent it up. Maybe it was for an audition to play on the radio. Maybe they're looking for rare tunes. Nobody knows. But they may have made a copy and sent it back to him. So then he obviously decided to give this into the National Folklore Collection. And then that's on your handout. You'll probably see the back of it. I don't have the tune on this, but you see the tune at the bottom of your handout. So we know at least one tune was composed by Alex that he claims. And I've gone through that collection. I've gone through the first book with Father Quinn, about 102 tunes in it, to try and see what the sources of the music were, you know. And there are a lot of rare tunes, which we'll talk about in a minute, but like all fiddle players and all musicians, he had access to published music collections, because he could read music. And when you're in that era, I mean, it's very difficult to find new tunes. How do you find new tunes? There's no radio back then, there's no, you know, CDs, there's no gramophones. This is the year before that. So, published books. So we have discovered that he copied some tunes from these books, just a small number, but actually what's more important is that the tunes from these books, a lot of them are actually learned from the books. They are assimilated, like as in, like, they're not exactly, you know, the same version, but it looks like that they were learned from the same book. Particularly Kerr's Melodies, Volume 4. So 12 tunes in that collection seem to be learned from that book. Then you have the Ancient Music of Ireland, 1873, and this famous O'Neill's Music of Ireland, which was so commonly used, it was called the book. Just simply called the book. Right? So that was one source of his music. Then there has to be local sources. Now what's very unusual about this book is that we can't match 14 tunes. We can't match them. Now that's a lot of tunes not be able to match, and if I can match a tune, it's Father Quinn. And when he can't match a tune, there's something different about it. It's either very rare or it was composed by somebody local. So it's not to say that Alexander composed those 14 tunes, but there must have been a composer in the region, either Alex or someone else, that he included those 14 tunes from. And then some of these he has named of local people. Obviously his own fiddle teacher, Peter Kennedy. There's the Dudley Gallagher, which we're going to play later on. Dudley Gallagher was a piper from Ballinamore. Dorn from Kesh, wherever he was. Flood's hornpipe, which we're going to play later on. And Father Conifrey's favourite reel. I'm sure you've all heard of him, famous Father Conifrey. The anti-jazz man. That's right. He held a great protest in Mobile in 1934 against the jazz. This is him. He founded the great Clune Cady band. And that's him there in the middle. And they performed in RT radio in the 1940s with the great Leo Grossum as the leader of that band. So he obviously knew Father Conifrey very well. He has also named some local place names in the titles. Right, you can see a few there. There's the Fianna Abbey, there's the Mullahorn Fiddler, Cavan mentioned, Swan and Bar, Glen Carr, there's the Garadice, yeah, Drumriley. So, you know, there's a lot of places named in the region. And then some funny names. He has he's a jig called the King of Jigs. Yeah. And he must have thought of a better set of reels, because he called it the father and mother of all jigs. So I thought that was very funny that he put them together in the manuscript, you know. And then this one here, the tune "The Old Cow Died." Now I presume he's talking about the animal and not his wife or. But he actually tells a story about how he got that tune. I'm not going to go into it now, but he actually got it off a local player. He says he basically hunted them down about this tune. He heard this tune, and he asked around, did anyone know this tune? And he eventually found someone who played it, and he took it down. So that tells us how he was getting this music. He was obviously sourcing from local musicians, actively trying to get local rare music to submit. Because if you're going to make a submission to National Folklore Commission, you want to, like, you know, obviously submit rare tunes. And that's what Alex seems to have done. So that's the main source of Alex's music. Then when he passed away, Father Quinn was going to talk about it. He went up to the house in the 1970s. Father Quinn actually wasn't aware of Alex Sutherland, or he weren't, until after he passed away, unfortunately. So he actually never got to meet him. But when Father Quinn did hear about Alex Sutherland, he went up to the house, and the daughter, I think it was Maggie, or another daughter, went to the fiddle case, and they found another 38 tunes on slips of paper in the fiddle case. And now there was more though, which again Father Quinn's going to talk about. There's a whole presser of music that unfortunately was lost, and we don't know what was in the presser of music. But look, if he submitted 200 and odd tunes to the Folklore Commission, I'm sure most of that was in the presser, same tunes. they were lucky enough that, I said, Alex Sutherland was a fantastic fiddle teacher. He had over at least 20 students. And we're talking, it was a huge range, I couldn't believe, up to 15 miles away, over in Fina. I was only over the house there of the Donnellys, Jimmy Joe Donnelly and his brother Faley. Are they here? No? They told me they were coming. They're lying to me. But anyway, their father, Paddy Donnelly, and their uncle, Packy Donnelly, was taught by Sutherland. And that's a good 10 miles away where they live, you know? And these fellas used to cycle up to Toome, up to his house. Sutherland, we think, taught Master Fitzpatrick, P. Fitzpatrick of Mohill, right? That was on your chart for the Quinn, so someone else told him that. And that's a good distance away from all of us.
Excuse me.
Yes?
Yeah. With a student there, Alex Sutherland as well.
Who was?
His father, Michael O'Rourke.
Michael O'Rourke. You see, here we go. That's amazing. I mean,
Have the fiddle here that he...
oh, well, great. Well, afterwards, we'll have a look at it afterwards. You see, that's what I was going to say, and it's a remarkable amount of students that he had. So he was in Fina, he was in Mohill, he was in Ohavas. He taught John Lee, again, flute player, he taught his father, P. Lee, the fiddle. And he obviously taught in his own parish of Drumreilly. And aren't we lucky, again, we have two different collections of students belonging to like, they're written during fiddle lessons with two students. The first one was written by a student, Joseph McCabe, from a Crickeen, is it? Is that pronounced right? Or Crockeen or Crickeen? Crickeen in Drumreilly. And he was learning that music of Sutherland around 1925. And this is just a page from it. Okay? So you can see in this case, it just must have been a blank page, and they just drew the stave lines on it and filled in the notes. So that's one source of music that we know from 1925. And it gives an idea of how Alex Sutherland was teaching the fiddle to these students. Then that brings me on nicely then on to the second manuscript of a student is of Mary Kate Gaffney of Carrick McKeegan in Drumreilly. And we think that that's dated from 1937. And her granddaughter, Marion, where are you? Marion Monaghan, plays the fiddle, same as myself, she's the same teacher. And she's going to say a few words about this. So Barry, you're up.
I don't have quite as much history as Conor has, but this is just a wee bit I've done up on Granny. So in this first picture, this is her outside the house, which is a thatched house, which we now live in, myself and Paul, and that's her grandfather, which would be our great-great-grandfather, and that's Matthew Gaffney. And his son Cornelius, or Con Gaffney, was born in 1887, and Ellen is his wife, who is Ellen McNiff, who was would be back related to Thomas McNiff, and I'm not sure what the wife, out in Ahawillan now, you know, Gerard McNiff, and so that's either 1882 or 1887 between the two of them anyway. So this is Granny here. Then I suppose when she was a wee bit older, and as Granny remained living in the home house. So this is her a few years later, I guess. So throughout that time she learned music. So Con also played music, and we're not sure if he learned from Alex or just Kennedy maybe, and there for Granny also learned, and I think she was telling people, like a lot of us when we started learning music, you were kind of forced into it a wee bit, forced to practice a good bit at the start. So here's some examples of when she died. We found manuscripts as well in her house, and here's some with Cornelius Gaffney's signature on it here. And this one as well, it's a lot more battered in real life. It looks like what some students would tell me, that the dog ate it, or the dog ate their homework or something. So we think it might be pretty old, got to do with him as well. And then if we go on to this one, we know then that Granny was writing, learning new music at this time. So this was on an envelope, 1937. And so she was born in 1919, so she was learning music at that stage. Again, we don't know if she, I suppose we're saying she's around 18, 19 at that stage, so did she cycle up to Sutherland's, or we're just not sure. So one thing that's kind of unique about how Conor was able to distinguish between who wrote them was Granny's had this kind of a little flick for each one of the notes. Do you see here?
Yeah.
So if we go on to this one, and this is an example comparing the two pieces that were written. You have to check now if you were listening from earlier on as to yes, test to see if you're listening. So we have some of our cut and slur here that you can see. Do you see the little slur and cut? And then when I learned, Enda McNamara also attempted to teach me the similar method. I'm not sure if it still exists or not. But here's one came here on the string that we're actually going to be playing later on. And so where did she play? This is outside her house then when it turned into a two-storey house, and these are, that would be Con's sister, who then moved to Ballinamore and married Gormleys. Do you know at the top of the town there, those Gormleys? And her children and another nameless person that's also present. And so when they would come home, her two cousins lived in England, and when they would come home there'd be a bit of a hoolie in the house, I suppose, and that's when you'd play music and there'd be a gathering and people would come together. So that's where she would play, maybe at social occasions. This is also a picture we got. There's Granny there. We're not really sure of anyone else in the picture, but I suppose again it's showing it's for gatherings, and that's what these events for. And actually somebody told us recently that just when we're trying to get things together, that she was asked to play at like a wedding in Ballinamore or different people's houses, which was probably a big thing back then, have to do that. So here's just examples again of her playing. This is over in our home house. This is up in Barry and Anna Barry's house, I think, isn't it, Anna? Yeah. And in our home, in Granny's own house there, they're probably the only pictures that we have of her playing. But she didn't only play, she also danced and sang, and I assume this is her doing a bit of a stance there for a dance. The photographer just missed the legs part of it. But we were highly influenced by this. And we took up the dancing as well. And I think she had some issue with her thyroid or something. She used to be very good as well at singing, and she was uniquely able to sing and play the fiddle at the one time. So I think we do get it hard enough to maybe nod to each other that there's a change in tune, much less singing as well. But I have been subjected, while practicing this, my little nephew, who's just 2, he's out the back there, you might have heard him, was very interested in the fiddle, and I've now learned the great skill of playing while playing and singing, but it's mainly Twinkle Twinkle and Old MacDonald that's played, but he does have to have his moment playing the fiddle as well. So again, I suppose I had the honour of being asked to play in Father Quinn's band years and years ago, and as we said, a few familiar faces there, Mary as well, and Oric and Conor. We must have made the old Leitrim Observer. It was a big event in 2000, and we would have played then. I'm playing that music again that Granny would have played. So this is her home place and the fireplace in it, and you can imagine it was in this room where the fire was that everything happened, that there was the Céilís, there was the music and the dancing and singing and everything that went on. So when we started, Conor cornabled us into, into coming together and doing this event, and we were looking about practicing. Now that we've done up this house, I thought, wouldn't it be nice if we practiced in the same room and brought the music back into the same walls that was played, whatever, nearly 100 years ago. So that was us just Monday night there after a practice. But the whole point of this isn't just about the music. I suppose, as with Granny, it was about coming together and having a laugh and enjoying it. So we definitely did that as part of our. We had good crack while we were getting, and that's the main thing. So that's just it for Granny.
So just so that's the first part of the night, and you're going to get on now to the part probably you're looking forward to is a bit of music and song. But before, something I forgot to say was that about Alex was that Alex was teaching from about 1910 to about 1940, right, 30-year period. As you all know, that was a dark period for Irish music across Ireland. Very dark period. It crossed over the two world wars, it crossed over the Irish Civil War, and there was a huge drop in Irish music seen across the country. And it almost disappeared in a lot of places. But Alex Sutherland kept the fiddle playing going in this region through all those students he had. So he kept that music going through a very dark period. I mean, I was just looking up, Peter Carberry was a piper from Ballinamore, is it? Yeah. Longford. Peter Carberry, Keena. And he played with a local group in the 1940s, the Rising of the Moon Céilí Band. And he said, band did not go down too well with some of the locals. They used to hurl and jeer abuse at us, you know? So it wasn't a time to play in Irish music, but Alex Sutherland kept it going just enough to bring it into the next era, onto Father Quinn, who was the next one to take up that baton and pass it on to us. So we're very fortunate to have that man, Alex Sutherland, in this region. So what we're going to do now is, probably all looking forward to, is we're going to play some of the music. But before that, we're going to introduce the man himself, Father John Quinn. He's going to speak us just a little bit about his own experience with the Sutherland collection, and then he's going to introduce the tunes that we play. Himself, Port McGovern, as you all know, from around here, from over in Ballymcgovern, obviously, Ballymcgovern, sorry, and Marion Mulligan from Carrick-McKeegan. So Father Quinn, would you like to come up and say a few words?
I was ordained in 1965, and the following year I had the first Céilí band that you saw up there earlier, and they won the All-Ireland that year, and after that it was downhill all the way until I was in Leitrim in 1997 and we won it again, and then in 2000. But in the meantime I had come across manuscripts of music in Longford, and I had been tunes from the manuscripts, the Kieran manuscript, another pupil of Roger Smith manuscript. And then when I came into Leitrim, I realised there must have been manuscripts in this area as well. And I went hunting for see where we might get, and in particular the Sutherland manuscripts. And I was directed to go to Maggie, that Maggie would be the one would know where there would be any music remaining from her father Alex. So I went over to Margaret anyway, and she told me the sad story that the majority of his music had been in a press in the house, and that when they were dry lining the house, they put out all the furniture on the street, and it was in the summertime, and they put all the furniture out and they were dry lining the house. But while they were, the furniture was out on the street, there came a big heavy shower of rain down on top of all the furniture. Everybody ran out and got the stuff into the shed, but not in time to have, the music was all soaked in water. And instead of trying, she was terribly disappointed. She said, instead of trying to salvage what was there, they burnt the whole lot. But she said, there may be some music, she said, because he used to send music to a man called Sean O'Sullivan in Dublin. and not our Sean O'Sullivan here, Sean O'Sullivan in Dublin, and I used to call him Master Green, and I said, who would Sean O'Sullivan in Dublin be? Oh, Sean O'Sullivan, he was the head of the Irish Folklore Commission, and if he got music, it's in the Irish Folklore Commission. So I went up to, he told me where to go, in Erdsford Terrace. So I went to Erdsford Terrace anyway, and I went into where the Irish Folklore Commission was on the end of the old university, and Rianach E. Ogan was there, and she said, well, actually the Sutherland Music has now moved over to our new premises in UCD Belfield, and she sent me over. She said, when you go over, tell the man there that it's in the drawer just below my desk. Somewhere like that. She rang him and told him where it was. So I went over anyway, and he started looking in her desk. And I said, this would be a very funny place to keep manuscript. And he said, I can't find them. I'd have to ring her. So I could hear her giving out to him on the phone, not in my desk, behind my desk. You see, so he went in those big drawers, and out came the manuscripts anyway. So she gave authority for me to get copies of every single tune from it. She said that because I was teaching the young people of the area, she would break the rules. The rule was that you couldn't give the entire collection to anybody. That you could only give sections at a time. But she said she'd break the rule in this case, and she gave me copies of the entire collection. And that's, we saw some examples of it there. Now, Maggie, there was letters as well, and she sent some of the letters on to Maggie. So I called back to Maggie, and Maggie in the meantime had found tunes in her father's fiddle case that was in her sister's house, I think in Carrick-on-Shannon, and there was 38 tunes in that. Now meanwhile, there was a big collection of music owned by the neighbours of the Rileys, Terry's grandfather and granduncle and his uncles and so on. And Micheál Riley brought me home 2 books from America, and one of them was in a different handwriting from the other, and one of them was definitely Terence Riley's name was in it, but the other one we couldn't make out. But from the manuscripts that we saw, you might have seen a special way that Alex Sutherland made an M. He put a hook through the middle of the M, and we knew from the other book had many, many tunes in Alex Sutherland's handwriting. Now actually I thought the whole lot was in Alex Sutherland, but Connor has alerted me to the fact that it's not all the same handwriting. It's different handwritings that were in that book, but much of it is in Alex Sutherland's handwriting. So we have quite an amount of Alex Sutherland's music, both from the Irish Folklore Commission and from the 38 tunes that were found in the fiddle case, and in the Riley collection as well. And here and there through the Riley collection there are slips of paper in Alex Sutherland's handwriting. So it was a wonderful source to have, and I picked out many tunes from it, and in particular Conor mentioned when these members, 3 of the 10 that won the All-Ireland in 2000, the year 2000, they played an 8-part reel from that manuscript, and it was the 8-part reel that won it for them. Because it was the talk of Enniscorthy. There was an under 18 band after playing an 8-part reel. So anyway, that was in the Alex Sutherland manuscript. They're going to play some tunes now here. We see the first 2. Old set tune number 1 and old set tune number 2. Now these are, we would probably call them polkas now, but they're probably more 2/8 marches. The first one is a 2/4 marches. The first one is a 2/4 version of the Hills of Glenorchy, a Scottish tune, but the Rollicking Boys of Tandragee is sung to it. The second one is I haven't identified the first part of it, but the second part of it is very, very like Corn Rigs or Bonnie, another Scottish tune. So it's probably a version of Corn Rigs or Bonnie. So these are the first two tunes that we're going to play now. Two Scottish 2/4 marches. I might mention that there were supposed to be 4 musicians here. Olive McTague, who unfortunately cannot be here tonight, Olive from Dorada Wood, famous Dorada Wood, no comment. She was called away because of a death of a friend of hers, so she would have been here tonight only for that. Now the next tune has a story, and they're going to play two jigs now, and the first one is called Katie's Fancy, and this is, you heard talk about the famous Francis O'Neill. He wrote a book called Irish Folk Music, and in it he told the story of this tune that's coming up, and it concerns Ballinamore. Another of Mr. Gillen's contributions, But Katie's fancy has the most interesting history of any. Peter Kennedy, a farmer living near Ballinamore, County Leitrim, and a fiddler of more than local reputation, from whom Mr. Gillen obtained this tune, told in an amused way how he had followed a fluter around the streets of that town in order to learn a new jig he was playing. Failing to memorise it to his satisfaction, Kennedy was obliged to trace out the fluter's lodgings and pay 4p for his services in dictating Katie's fancy, as he called it out to his visitor. The tune was regarded by Mr. Gillen as a rare prize, and he safely guarded it on his return to Chicago. Miss Nellie, his daughter, with her characteristic good nature, surreptitiously wrote me a copy. As soon as I could whistle it, the jig was given general circulation. So that we don't know where the poor man was chasing this flute player around. There's probably a fair going on here in Ballinamore at the time, but he finally got this tune. And in O'Neill's book, there are 3 parts to it. I don't know if you're getting the 3 parts or the 2 parts.
Oh, 3 parts.
3 parts. You're getting 3 parts. Why not? Alex Sutherland only taught 2 parts to your grandmother in the manuscript. The 2 parts seemingly was the original, but I think it is the 3rd part that Peter Kennedy really wanted to get, and he might have been able to get the first 2 parts elsewhere. Now, the second tune they're going to play is another Scottish tune. It's in Scotland it's known as Ken Muir on and Awa Woolly. and O'Neill couldn't make out what that was about, so he thought it was like a question, and he answered it, I will if I can. and he calls it the tune, I will if I can, in the big book, O'Neill's book. But Alex Sutherland was quite as enterprising as O'Neill, and when he heard Ken Muir on and Awa, he thought Awa was, it's a way it means, but he must have thought it was a river, Awa, and he called it, he made it Irish of it, Kenmare on the stream. So they're going to play those 2 there. going to play 3 reels next.
No, the hornpipes.
And
Hornpipes.
there's stories to go with the first and the last.
Father, no, the hornpipes first.
What?
Hornpipes first. And then the reels. Hornpipes first.
Or will you put them in the wrong order? The hornpipes are next, aren't they?
Yes, yeah.
And then the reeds.
Yeah.
Look. 3, 4. I can prove it here. You have them in the wrong order. We're doing 4 before 3, so they're playing the Harvest Home and Flood's Hornpipe. Now the Harvest Home is usually known locally as Cork Hornpipe, but Alex always called it the Harvest Home. Flood's Hornpipe is very interesting. It's most unusual tune, and we thought that it might have even been composed by Alex, but it's not actually, because I found it in the Kerr number 4. They're untitled. Now, but the name would have been given by Alex. Whoever the floods were, we don't know. It might have been a flood, Pádraig Hearn from a flood man. So there probably was a flood musician in the time of Alex who called it after that flood man. So they're going to play those hornpipes for Harvest Home and Flood's Hornpipe. Pardon?
I'm sure you'll be very good at that.
Yeah,
No job.
there's a request down here, and I have the benefit of being deaf, so I don't hear people speaking during the music. But there's a request for people not to speak loudly during the music. So please do not speak loudly during the music. Okay, we come to the three reels, and the three reels are the Bonnie Lass of Lincoln, a very, very popular tune in this area, the Blue Breeches in the middle, and Dudley Gallagher's Fancy. Now, Blue Breeches is the easiest one to dispose of. It's a local title for a local version of a tune usually known as Boil the Breakfast Early. Now, Boil the Breakfast Early has three parts to it, but the Blue Breeches doesn't use the first part, and all the local manuscripts have the Blue Breeches with the third and fourth part only, and it's very interesting, a beautiful tune. Now the first tune, the Bonnie Lass of Lincoln, is a name made up by Alex Sutherland. This tune I came across first in the Smith manuscript in Abilara when I was in the County Longford, and it was known as Pinner Agin the Gate. And I always thought that it was a thieving cow. I thought it was a thieving cow, the Pinner Agin the Gate. But when I brought the manuscript, copied the manuscript over to Michael Francis McInerney, and I said, "Oh," he said, "you never say that. Never say that. In polite company, you always say the pigeon on the gate, or some other thing. So you never use that phrase." So the suggestion was then that there must be something about this Pinner Agin the Gate. It certainly doesn't seem to be a cow that you're Pinner Agin the Gate. So, and I looked it up on the internet, would you believe? And there's two references on the internet to Pinner Against the Gate. Number one is this reel they're going to play now that was renamed by Alex Sutherland, the Bonnie Lass of Lincoln. And a quotation from Harry Potter. Pin her against the gate and kiss her senseless. So it's hardly a cow. It's hardly a cow. That's the first reel. Anyway, the last one is Dudley Gallagher's Fancy. Now we have to talk about Dudley Gallagher. Where is Dudley? The last tune they're going to play is Dudley Gallagher's Fancy, but who was Dudley Gallagher? Irish Minstrels and Musicians O'Neill's book. As far back as the second quarter of the 19th century, a farmer named Dudley Gallagher of Lisnatulla, near Ballinamore, County Leitrim, had a wide reputation as an Irish piper. The chanter of his pipes was recently brought to Chicago by James Kennedy on his return from a visit to his native home. The wood is lignum vitae, so he was a famous piper. Now, in the parish of Gortletra, a man lived from 1832 to 1902, the poet Higgins, and he wrote a poem about Dudley Gallagher's dance. Now, I'm going to read only a section of it, less than half of it. It's a very long poem. Pay attention, young and old, Pray pay attention, young and old, unto these lines that I unfold, which do describe, but not full well, the dance that Dudley Gallagher held. The pitch on which he did commence was finished off at great expense, with chiselled stones completely walled, paved, gravelled, arched and spalled. It did so well the purpose suit, for seats the wall did substitute. Now we'll skip a bit. The youths from lethargy being raised, and for diversion seemed prepared, were ready, eager, fond and wishful to attend the sport a cushla. And if you seen the lads awake, cutting scatters on the pitch, kicking, bouncing, hopping, stamping, rearing, leaping, jumping, tramping. They got through figures very handy, sturdy, nimbly, swift and randy, with merry pranks and airy flings, rigadoons and Rutland bends, with nice quadrilles and three-hand reels, cotillions, jigs and petticoatees. And we'll go on further. And Dudley played on such a scale, his music echoed on the plain, which did the weary animate, and in the nerves new vigour create. The young, the old, the decrepit came to hear his fascinating strain, which was enamouring and captivating, diffusing ecstasy and consolation. He models Acatios in Music Suite, who won the Monsters of the Day. There's a quotation from a French book of the time. So we'll skip, there's a whole go about that book and the Telemachus and his things to do. Yet Dudley might have done the same had he existed in those days. At least he's matchless at the present time, for which he does great applause condign. It's few musicians that could him exceed, since Pan first played upon the reed, and so some writers represent he the first pipe music did invent. I'm going to leave it at that, and we'll hear the three tunes, the Bonnie Lass of Lincoln, the Blue Britches, and Dudley Gallagher's Fancy.
tunes, aren't they? Absolutely beautiful, rare tunes. I wouldn't hear anywhere else. And absolutely. And see, the reels there are a lot easier than they are now. That's when music was more closely lined to dancing. So when you're playing music for dancers, you need easier tunes to play than complicated ones now. So I mentioned that there was tunes in the collection. Yeah, just I just want to get afterwards we can do a few questions. I want to keep it going. Mary's giving me strange looks, I'd say, somewhere to wrap things up. So there's 20 songs in the collection as well, right? And it seems that Alex composed some of them. And we haven't matched any of the words or the titles or even the tunes itself. And I'd like to introduce Fionnuala Maxwell from my own parish of Annaduff. I'm sure you all know Fionnuala. She's a fantastic singer. She has sang with all the great groups in Ireland. She's won titles at national level, and she's probably the leading teacher in singing in Sligo, Leitrim, Longford, all around that region. So Fionnuala had a look at the collection for me, and she picked out a lovely song, Michael Rooney's Band, I mentioned earlier on. Now this is the world premiere of Michael Rooney's Band. It literally has not been sung probably since the last time Alex Sutherland wrote it down on that page. So this is going to be, for all of us, the very first time of hearing this song. So Fionnuala, would you like to...
Very huge introduction. As Conor said, yeah, I do teach traditional singing up in Granard and at home in Carrick and Shannon and Sligo also. My main focus when I'm teaching those groups is to try and get songs from their local areas and to teach them the songs, because I always believe the tradition isn't fully preserved if it just lies in a manuscript. I think that if we can pass it on, which is what we're talking about here, that's how we preserve tradition. So I was delighted to get the manuscript of songs. It's not a sort of a song that I'd sing, but in terms of the words being there and the music being there, I just thought, you know, this was interesting to get both. As Conor said, we're not sure if this was written by Sutherland himself, but he definitely had signed it off and it was written out, the tunes were, and I haven't found it anywhere else. So there were other songs that were there that when I searched for them I found versions of them. So this was one I just didn't see anyplace else, and I said, okay, let's go with it. And it was interesting when you talked about the bands being mentioned. I'm doing a bit of research at the moment through the old newspaper archives, and at most of the big events, bands were playing, and even if they were nicely received or they weren't, and in this case Michael Rooney's band, they reckoned they were the biz, and they were very well received in certain places. So I just think too it's interesting just to see the instruments and things that are mentioned throughout the song. That's the way our history as well. When I'm teaching, I usually have young kids that are learning these songs as well as older as well, but to teach them the history of where they've come from and what was there, I think it's an interesting way as well. They'll always ask questions about the songs. Sometimes I can answer them, sometimes I search for the answers, but it's a great way of passing on our history to them. So here it is, it's Michael Rooney's Band. I'm going to use the lyrics as well because I'm just not 100% with them. You may talk about your Haydns, Beethoven and Mozart, and all the great composers who hail from every part. But I, the comic genius, I will soon outwit them all. For Wagoners and Carties I will knock against the wall. My wife and all the family, I have taught them how to play in all the flats and all the sharps, in fact in any key. And everyone who hears says it is elegant and grand, and the music in the future will be Michael Rooney's band. For Johnny plays the knick-and-knacks and James he draws the bow, Patsy plays the banjo and Kate the piano, Molly blows the trombone and Larry holds the stand, and I conduct the instruments of Michael Rooney's band. We are getting invitations from morning until night, and amongst themselves the noblemen do often row and fight, to see which one will have us first to play in some great ball, and then a courtier pair come long to take us to the hall. When supper it is over, to the ballroom we go in, we tune away like fury till we get the words begin. We play the grandest music that ever yet was known, from the cow that ate the piper to the rakes of Garryowen. For Johnny played the knick-and-knacks and James he draws the bow, Patsy Patsy plays the banjo and Kate the piano. Molly blows a trombone and Larry holds a stand, and I conduct the instruments of Michael Rooney's band. Before many years go by, if we keep up our fame, it's Bachelor of Music we'll have added to our name. We have done an Irish opera in 26 acts, and it's every bit original and founded upon facts. Sure, they christened it Molly Bralligan, the cattle drover's row, the murder of the gouger, and the monkey and the cow. And the way we will produce it will astonish all the land, and I hope you'll come and hear it played by Michael Rooney's band. For Johnny plays the knickknacks and Jamesy draws the bow, Patsy plays the banjo and Kate the piano. Molly blows the trombone and Larry holds the stand, and I conduct the instruments of Michael Rooney's band.
We are blessed and enough to have Fionnuala as such a wonderful singer. And not only is she singing, she's treasurer of our branch in Kyoto, and she really drives the thing on down there. We had Leitrim last year, and Fionnuala was just fantastic. So we're very lucky. She's great with the kids, and she just drives everything down there. We're very lucky. So we're on to the last part now. You'd be happy to know that the music survived in the Sutherland family, and we have the McDermott family here tonight. Carmen McDermott is a granddaughter of Sutherland. She's also a singer. And her husband, Paddy McDermott, I'm sure you all know, he's a flute player. He's taught here in Ballinamore for years, half flute player. And their children are going to play, Gemma and Karen, their two daughters. And Gemma and Karen's children are going to play. So you have 3 generations of Sutherlands playing here tonight. And Carmel is going to sing a song. Aren't you, Carmel? Probably some of you are aware that at the All-Ireland Fleadh Drogheda, Diarmuid won or got second in the banjo. Under 15, was it, Paddy? Yeah. Fantastic. Under 12. So they're a very talented family.
I might just be telling you about the tunes they're going to play. They're going to. Alex was an interesting man in the manuscripts. He sometimes linked up tunes together, and we had the first 2 tunes were 2 old set tunes. There were 2 Scottish tunes that he put together. But now we're going to have 3 tunes that he called Long John's Wedding as played in 3 counties. Well, he didn't say what counties they were. Now, I have researched the tunes, and they're only going to play actually 2 of them, but the first one is called The Perfect Cure, and it's an English music hall tune. The second one is called Nancy Fat, and it's an American black minstrel tune. And the third one is Mogachi, a Scottish song. So it's actually 3 matching tunes from 3 countries rather than 3 counties. Yeah, so they're the first tunes that they have.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I don't think it's fair that we shall have to get up here after those great musicians there. We'll try our best anyway. So, we have 2 great-grandchildren, and then they're the 2 great-great-grandchildren. I don't know what you call me A grandson-in-law, maybe. So, we're going to start with the two tunes that Father alluded to. We saw them in the manuscript as John's Wedding number 1 and 2 and 3, so there obviously was devotion done rightly long before anywhere else. So, because Alec was a fiddler, we'll start with the two fiddles and we'll take it from there.
Earlier Conor mentioned March that was submitted to RTE, or Radio Éireann as it was at the time, was then sent on to the Folklore Commission, and that's what they're going to play now. Composed by Alex Sutherland. He actually composed words to it as well, but I think it's very hard to get the words to match the music, and we didn't succeed in getting the words to match the music yet, but it'll be done yet. Anyway, so it's the March of the Irish Defence Forces.
Where's the front end of the army? So this is two more great-great-grandchildren, and this is Karen's daughter here, Kiva, and that's Gemma's daughter, Keela. And because it's more or less, as Conor said earlier on, one of the most guaranteed tunes of composed by Alex Sutherland, I think we'll start off the march with the four great-grandchildren.
Very
And
good.
we'll build it on with the great-grandchildren, and then the great-grandson.
There are songs to do something.
Yeah. I'm just thinking there now, wouldn't that be a great tune for the Arcane Boys band playing in Cavan and Leitrim in Northern Ireland? I said Cavan and Leitrim.
Oh, why did you say that?
From the Arcane Boys don't know. So that's the granddaughter now has arrived.
I was nervous before I came, but I'm now I'm under the nerves. Might not work at all. The wild birds warble, the silvery rills sing cheerily round the spot, and the peaceful shade of the purple hills falls dim on my mother's cot. Its windows are small and its thatch is low and its ancient walls are grey. Oh, I see it, I love it, wherever I go, it's this Irish home far away. The little clock ticks on the parlour wall, recording the passing hours, and the pod geranium grow rank and tall with their brilliant scarlet flowers. And the armchairs so cozy and low, where mother sat knitting all day. Oh, I see it, I love it, wherever I go, it's this Irish home far away. Oh, mother, how plainly I see you now, reclining on that old chair, with the sunset resting upon her brow, which once was so young and fair, and the crimpled border as white as snow on the one star fair now grey. Oh, I see her, I love her, wherever I go, in this Irish home far away. Not all the riches the world affords, the treasures of land or sea, nor all the wealth of earth's proud lord could blot from memory. The roof that sheltered those dear, dear heads, and the humble floor of clay, where the feet I loved were wont to tread, in this Irish home far away. The wild birds warble, the silvery rills fall cheerily round the spot, and the peaceful shade of the purple hills falls dim on my mother's cot. Its windows are small and its thatch is low and its ancient walls are grey. Oh, I see it, I love it, wherever I go, it's this Irish home far away.
Now we're going to finish off with two reels, and the first one I have a big file of music, and in every tune I have a file on each tune. And this particular tune, I have about 20 different titles for it in different settings. And the local version was known by the Rileys as the Loch Erin reel. But that one, with 20 or 21 titles, none of them was good enough for Alex Sutherland. He gave it another name, In the Turf Bog, he called it. And we think that maybe when he was sending off tunes to the Folklore Commission, he might have sometimes put in a strange name to give the impression that this was an unknown tune. But this is certainly not an unknown tune. It's known all over the country by so many different names. But anyway, He called it In the Turf Bog. And the second one is an interesting one. He calls it Mulvey's Reel. And he clearly got it from the Piper Mulvey. And the Piper Mulvey was from Gortletra, who got a collection of music from Stephen Greer. And if you're interested in, it's one of the greatest collections. Greer was a Longford man who came to live in Gortletra, and he wrote out his entire repertoire of music, over 1,000 tunes, and they're available online now on the Irish Traditional Music Archive website. You can get all the tunes online. If you press in Greer, you'll find all these. It'll send you to the tunes. A most interesting collection of tunes, and now available to everybody. And in the collection, he called this particular tune Our House at Home. So they're going to play In the Turf Bog, and the tune that Sutherland called Mulvey's Reel, but the proper title is Our House at Home.
As this is the conclusion of our piece, I'd like to say how privileged I was to be associated with this, and to be associated with the extended Sutherland family, and I'm delighted to see them all here. Big welcome to them, and just to say that Gemma's husband is here, Kieran. Music's coming from that end as well. His two sisters, Rita and Deirdre, and several of the rest of them. Kieran stayed in the Cornavane band for about 3 or 4 weeks. Concentrated on football then. And Martin here is Kieran's husband, and he can play the piano, but is only allowed to play it at home. So the young ones have, and my father played the fiddle around Kilishandra, Cornafane area, and he was taught by a Jimmy Mulligan who lived between Kilishandra and Carrigallen, and Jimmy Mulligan would have been a contemporary of Alex Sutherland, and some of the tunes that my father learned from Jimmy Mulligan would have been also played by Alex Sutherland. The other thing I would like to, when we're talking about the downturn of Irish music, which was particularly bleak in the 60s, when I was a young person, I was very lucky to have held on to any music at all, just a few tunes, because no one wanted to hear about anything only the Beatles and all the rest of it. So Shels McGovern will attest to that. He's my ear as well. And Tommy Moore. I'd like to also say a special welcome to Seamus McGovern and his family. We started off in Cornafane with a marching band, and I only knew a few tunes, and I had to try and keep ahead of the band, and then they started showing interest in Irish music in the 70s, and they went on to be a very successful band, and then the Morris joined us, and from Carrigallen, Tommy's here tonight, and they made a big improvement with us, and then I got involved in the school here with the McGovern family, and of course they were a fierce help to us all together. Every one of them got better player, were far better than me, and that's continuing as well. The girls are much better than me, but still let me play with them and not have any. Thank you all. And we'll finish with those two, please, the father said.
it? Absolutely beautiful music. The tunes are lovely, and of course they're a very, very talented family. And I think it's apt that Alex is looking over them, you know, and all that he did to keep music alive in the South Leitrim region and to see it alive in his own family. He probably would have been the proudest man sitting here tonight if he could be. So it's just wonderful. And if you indulge us, mention that Diarmuid Martin was second in the banjo under 12.
Resemblance.
Yeah. So if you just the last thing, the very last thing tonight, if you indulge us, Diarmuid is going to play his reel that he played in the competition. Fine tune and a fine player. So that's it, folks. Just want to thank again Mary Conifrey. I'm sorry Mary went a bit later as usual. She's going to kill me afterwards, but I think it was worth it, wasn't it? You've always been very generous with their time and space, and especially Mary. So could you all make sure maybe if any rubbish or all that, just to kind of bring it with you or put it in the bin on the way out. And that's it, folks. Thanks. Hold on a second, Mary just wants to say a few words.
Just finally, everyone, I want to say a huge thanks to Hannah for working with me to make this possible tonight, to Marion and Porrick, and to all the other musicians of all ages, and I think even the younger ones are better again, if I can say that. Thanks to our singers as well, to Aidan O'Hara and to Father Crane, and to the extended Sutherland family. Thank you for being here. To yourselves, you were a great audience, and I want to say thank you to my colleague Vincent, who helped move, shift everything about the place. And finally, you know, to celebrate National Heritage Week, what other way could we do it? I think fabulous. Thank you.